Let's take a look at tweening. Please note that this tutorial was created on an iPad Pro using Animation Pro version 1. Your screens may look a little different. So what are tweens? Let's take a look at a really simple animation. Here we have just 7 frames of a man doing the hokey pokey in extreme slow motion. That is, he's stepping forwards and then backwards at 1 frame per second. If we take a look at the rendered video, his motion is really disjointed and jerky. Animation Pro, however, can automatically generate intermediate frames between those 7 frames. These are what we call tweens. By adding an additional 24 tweens between the 7 frames that I created, the resulting animation looks a whole lot smoother. Now, by default, Animation Pro tweens everything except figure substitutions and colour blend mode changes. So generally speaking, you don't have to think about it too much. Whenever you export your animation, simply select the number of tweens that you'd like to add. But sometimes it can actually be useful to turn tweening off between 2 given frames. You may, for example, want to change the colour of a figure abruptly. So let's take a look at how tweening may be controlled whilst animating. So I'll now apply a colour change to demonstrate. Remember, colour blend mode changes can't be tweened. So I'll start by setting the tinting blend mode of the figure in frame 1 to multiply. I'll then select the second frame and set the figure's blend mode to multiply as well. This time I'll also give the figure a green tint. With 24 tweens, the animation will look like this. Now you may have noticed that the figure tinted gradually to green and then gradually back to normal. But I actually want the colour to go back to normal abruptly after frame 2. In other words, I'd like tweening to stop just for the tinting at frame 2. Fortunately, Animation Pro gives you full control over tweening from frame to frame. With the second frame selected, I can use the Figure Inspector to modify all of the figure's tween settings for that frame. So I'll use it to turn the Tween Item Tints setting off. Now when I view the exported video, it will look like this. So now the green tint is tweened between frames 1 and 2, but then it remains green until frame 3, where no tinting is currently applied. As you can see, it is possible to independently control how the different animatable aspects of a figure are tweened. It's important to note that these settings are saved with each frame of the animation, and thus only apply between one frame and the next. The settings, however, will be retained as you create new frames. But just as figures have a lot of animatable properties that may be tweened, so do the items that make up the figures. I'll tap on the figure's upper arm to bring up the item popover. Here, you can see a switch that allows the tweening of the item's movements to be turned on and off. So let's turn it off for the first 3 frames of this animation, and then see the outcome. The figure's arm now makes jerky movements at the start of the animation, whilst everything else animates smoothly. Now let me digress for a moment to talk a little bit about item adjustments. One very common technique you'll use whilst animating is item substitution. I'll quickly demonstrate this by substituting the figure's hand in the 4th frame. Now, depending on how the substitute was created, it's possible that things won't line up properly as shown here. When this occurs, it's necessary to adjust the position of the item. So I'll tap on the item's handle and then select Adjust from the item popover. I'll adjust the position and then accept the changes. When I render the animation, I see that the item adjustment has been tweened, and that looks pretty poor. In this case, we need to turn off the item adjustment tweening before and after the substitution. So let's take a look. Firstly, I'll select frame 3, tap on the handle for the figure's hand, and then select Adjust from the item popover. This will display the item adjustment screen. At the bottom right corner, you'll find a bunch of switches for controlling the item adjustment tweening. In this case, I'll turn off tweening for the item's position. I'll repeat this process for the next frame, as I don't want the same problem to occur when the hand reverts back following the substitution. The rendered animation now looks a lot better. Finally, Animation Pro has a virtual camera that can be animated, so you'll find some additional tweening controls there. To demonstrate, I'll use the virtual camera to zoom in on frame 4 and set the depth of field to blur the background. I'll also turn the depth of field on in frame 3 so that the camera blurs as it zooms in. The end result looks like this. Perhaps, however, you'd like to zoom in slowly but then zoom out instantly. In that case, I can turn off tweening for the camera zoom and the camera depth of field in frame 4 as shown. To demonstrate user tweens, I'm going to create an animation consisting of 2 frames. The second frame is going to be the same as the first, except I'm going to rotate the figure's arm 270 degrees counterclockwise. Now, when Animation Pro creates the tweens for this animation, it does so by moving the arm along the shortest path possible. In this case, it will move the arm 90 degrees clockwise. So in these situations, where Animation Pro's automatic tweening isn't producing the desired results, you can choose to override them completely by creating your own user tweens. To do that, I'll select the first frame, press the plus button at the top of the screen to open the Add menu, and then I'll choose User Tweens. The first time that you do this in any given animation, Animation Pro will ask you to lock in the number of tweens. That is, once user tweens have been added to an animation, the number of tweens will be locked, and you won't be able to adjust them during exports. In this case, I'm happy with 3 tweens between each frame, so I'll press the Create User Tweens button. Animation Pro will then generate the tweens for frame 1 and present them to me for editing. So now I'll proceed to modify the rotation of the figure's arm in each of the tweens such that it rotates the other way. And when I'm done, I'll tap on the picture of the parent frame, in this case frame 1, to return to the normal film strip. Now, whenever a frame has user tweens, an icon, as shown here, will be displayed above its thumbnail image on the Animation Pro film strip. You can tap on the icon to make further changes to the tweens. If you want to remove user tweens from a frame, open the Remove menu at the top of the screen and select User Tweens. For now, I'll finish this tutorial by exporting the animation to see what it looks like. I hope you found that as informative as I did. Thanks for watching.